you again for another episode and an edition of Reactivated. Throughout the history of Robot Wars, there has been one menace, one presence in each fight, and of course, the house. Now, they might have been mean, menacing, moody, manipulative across all 10 series, but we're going to celebrate the times where they were, worse for wear, humiliated. Certainly from my point of view as a kid, every time a house robot was flipped or ripped apart or attacked, I loved it. I really got a sense of adrenaline. Yes, they've been, destroyed into submission. So, to reflect on this, we're going to pick 10 moments, and we're going to start, of course, at number 10. Where do we start? Well, we have to go right back to the beginning for our first spot at number 10. It's the first war and the first time a house robot was attacked. Recyclops versus Matilda. This was groundbreaking because at the time, yes, we were only a couple of shows into the universe that would become Robot Wars, but none of the house robots had been attacked the way Recyclops flipped Matilda. And it was great to see, even the reaction from the pits was evident at the time. And that was it. Matilda was the first house robot, to be completely humiliated, and she deserved it. Well done, Recyclops. In at number 9, it's the same team. Rex Garrod, he loved entertaining the audience. Now, I put this into the top 10 because this was the start of a trend of a robot with a flipper, the confidence to attack not just one house robot, but a whole group of them. And because Cassius was so famous at this point, the house robots, for me, and certainly the drivers and the controllers, I've got a little bit jealous, really, of the success that Cassius had proven itself with the self-righting mechanism, the first robot to ever do it. And for them to attack the house, there was always going to be that grudge between Cassius 2 and the house. And Cassius won, really. It carved the pathway. It was a turning point, really, because it showed other competitors that if you had a strong enough robot, once you've dealt with your opposition, you could then have a go at the house. And it was brilliant. That's why we've put Cassius 2 against the house in at number 9. Sticking with flippers, we have to go now forward quite a fair bit to a eventual champion, as he was the first robot in the rebooted series to have a go at the house robots. Yes, it's Apollo versus Matilda, Dead Metal and Shunt. Certainly for me, this was the first time in the rebooted series. In fact, really, this was probably the only heat that the house was really attacked. Not only did Apollo flip Storm all over the arena, Storm 2, it flipped Dead Metal and Matilda in the same fight, and then later on in the heat final, took on Shunt. And these house robots weighed a hell of a lot more than they did in the original run. So for Apollo to flip 3 out of the 4 house robots was very impressive. And what a spectacle. Apollo versus the house in at number 8. The biggest and meanest house robot, Mr. Psycho. You could say Mr. Psycho is very clumsy with the hammer, and you could say he's lost his head. At the time in the original run, Mr. Psycho was the heaviest of the house robots, weighing in at 750 kilos. Certainly in the original series, there was no real talk about flipping this machine, this massive weight, up until a certain point in the Commonwealth Carnage in Extreme 2, when Firestorm had a pop, not just at Panic Attack, not just at Sergeant Bash, but after the cease had gone, Mr. Psycho reversed onto Firestorm's flipper, and because of the balance was all off, and it created an opportunity for Firestorm to press the flipper, launch the flipper, and very slowly, gradually, Mr. Psycho went over. And it took an army to resurrect him. And for me, I had to wait a few years after the original transmission, because it actually, technically, it never actually got transmitted on BBC Two, because the Iron Maiden was the last ever episode. This was the transition between BBC Two and Channel 5. So I never saw this. It was years later down the line on some Sky channel that I finally saw Mr. Psycho being flipped. Well done, Firestorm. In at number 6, this is another flipper versus a house robot. But because this is the first time this particular house robot was flipped for the first time, we've put Gravity versus Dead Metal and Shunt in at number 6. Gravity for me is one of the most powerful flippers we ever saw in the original run, and one of my favourite robots to come from Series 7 because of the fact not only was it flipping robots all over the place, it had the courage to take on the house robots, and it did so in the heat file against Lightning. Shunt was a bit of a lightweight by this point. He was used and abused quite a lot, but it was Gravity's attack on Dead Metal, which is why we've put this particular attack at number 6, because this was the first time Dead Metal had ever been flipped. At the very last moment, Gravity got in underneath Dead Metal to a point where it could easily flip the widest house robot. This is why Dead Metal was so difficult to flip, because of the claws. It was so wide. But Gravity managed it, and Dead Metal just like a turned turtle on his back, didn't he, at one point? Well done, Gravity. Okay, so we've talked a lot about how flippers have humiliated the house robots, but what if it's not even a competitor to humiliate a house robot? What if it's an arena hazard? We're going to Extreme 1, and it came in the All-Stars clash between Tornado and Pussycat. It was a great fight. Killalot was destroying Pussycat because Pussycat lost its wheel by this point, but what they didn't anticipate was the jet of flame that came up was meant to torch Pussycat. Killalot got so close to this jet, and it must have just launched in the right position within Sir Killalot for him to go up in a burning glory. What an inferno this was. Sir Killalot was... I don't know how they managed to recover Sir Killalot from this. We've seen Killalot set alight before in Series 3 with RoboPig. He got too close to the flame pit and his head, and they managed to jet him. But there wasn't anyone on standby to simply come onto the arena at such short notice. What the Killalot had to do, ironically, was go back onto one of the arena hazards to put out the smoke and the fire. And he did with the CO2 blast, the jet blast. Well done for bringing him back, though, because that must have caused some serious damage. It was fantastic to see. I loved every second of this, which is why we've put Tornado and Pussycat with Sir Killalot setting on fire as our number 5 spot. In at number 4, it's a flipping frenzy, but no, probably not the one you're thinking of. We have to go to Series 7 Extreme 3 for the flipper frenzy, once again featuring Gravity and Behemoth. And it also involves the first flip over of Growler and Cassius Chrome. Gravity did most of the work, flipping Growler in the first opening few seconds, and then followed by Cassius Chrome almost being pitted, but because he got wedged on the pit, that allowed Gravity to take advantage and flip Cassius Chrome up and over. And I think if they'd put Shunt, Matilda, Sergeant Bash in instead, it would have been even more devastating for the house. They knew what they were doing, putting in the heaviest house robots, but it was a joy to watch, seeing two of my favourite robots of all time pitted in against the house robots. It's just a bit of fun, and that's what we want on Robot Wars. It's just a bit of mindless flipping fun, which is why we've put the Flipper Frenzy from Extreme 3 in at number 4. We've mentioned this many times throughout Reactivated. This comes in Extreme 3 again. Panic Attack, Cat 3, Bigger Brother and Firestorm versus the house. This fight came at a time where I have a feeling that the production was coming to an end. I think the director or the producers felt that just go for it, we don't care anymore kind of thing, the attitude was. Because if you notice, it wasn't just the house robots who were getting destroyed. The drop zone was going off, the floor flipper wasn't going off when it was supposed to. The arena looked dirty and just unloved. It should have been an all-stars fight. None of them fought against each other, they just decided to attack the house. It was great. Shunt went over first. I think they were trying to get Shunt out of the arena. And then Cat 3 had a few goes at Cassius Chrome. They tried to flip Refbot and immobilise Refbot. Again, another brilliant fight. And there we go, in at number 3. One of my absolute favourite House Robot humiliations came in Extreme 1 in the original Flipper Frenzy. It was the first fight where the competitors had obviously had a quiet moment in the pits beforehand and decided, right, okay, it's billed as the Flipper Frenzy. We were expecting them to all fight each other, but really secretly behind the scenes they were plotting to, for the first time ever, flip a House Robot out the arena. But the unexpected happens because they team up and go after the House Robots. Really Big Cheese is the first to sadly fall. I don't know if they had radio reception problems, but Matilda's flywheel, they just got stuck with Matilda and that was it. The concentration and focus was on the other 3 robots. Now, for some reason, Sergeant Bash came out of his CPZ. So that makes me think that the controller of Sergeant Bash had got a whiff of what was about to come. But Sergeant Bash came out awfully quickly. It wasn't under any threat. The robots, the competitor robots, weren't even going towards the CPZ. He just came out. And then, of course, the flipping started. I remember seeing this and, it's like my heart was going because I was thinking, they could actually flip a House Robot out the arena and they were so close. But didn't they take an awfully long time to get to the point? Everything seemed so very slow. And then they finally got bashed towards the edge of the arena. One more flip would have got him out of the arena. Really frustrating because that's the only thing we never saw in Robot Wars, a House Robot being flipped out of the arena. And this was probably the one time they came so close to doing it. And we're going now to our number 1 spot. Can anyone guess what our number 1 spot was? I will give you a clue. It came in the form of a certain competitor, well-known robot with a claw and a female House Robot in an Annihilator special. Yes, that's right. We're heading south to the Annihilator from Series 4. And once again, this I think there's a little bit of planning, I think, in this, because if you've noticed very closely in some rear shots of Matilda, you could just see some white coating as if they were trying to protect. So they protect the electronics as if they knew that something was about to happen. And it did. I mean, Onslaught drove into the CPZ, Matilda flipped, and then Razor started to pierce down and crumple through Matilda's shell. She was popping, she was spasming, and then she broke down, and then she set a light onto the flame pit, and then poor Matilda at the end, she was just a skeleton, and Refbot there was at the end extinguishing her. This was, without doubt, the biggest humiliation of a House Robot to ever have been seen in Robot Wars, personally for me this. To be honest, I think it was planned, because this was the last fight that they filmed in the Series 4 arena. These specials were filmed at the very end of the series. Of course, they were broadcast between the Wild Thing heat and the Behemoth heat, I think, or it was somewhere in the middle. It was specials for over the Christmas period. And you could tell as well because they put in a nice little edit at the end of RIP on screen, and she came into the arena again with her bandages. So it was all planned, I think, but it was lovely to see. This was, and I genuinely thought that was going to be the end of Matilda. Did anyone else think that? When they saw this episode, they thought, oh, that's how they're going to rebuild Matilda. But of course, that was her last fight with a chainsaw, and she was going to be upgraded anyway with a lovely new flywheel. So it was the end of an era for that particular model of Matilda. And there we have it. The cease is gone. I'm sorry, I've got no more time, and that's good timing, that, isn't it? We do plan these well, I promise. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We will be back very soon with more Reactivated, but until then, please like, share, download, submit more questions for our next edition. Until then, thanks for watching and goodbye.